Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
And greetings. Thank you so much for joining me, Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. You can listen live on air like in your car when you're driving. Do you have a radio still in your car? A lot of people don't. Or on your radio that's sitting in the kitchen. Do you have that? I still do. I bet a lot of you don't. Or, of course, you can listen anytime online at iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn app, smart speakers, nccradio.org, or get even closer and cozier by downloading our own wonderful WHPC app, and then you can get all the broadcasts that are here on 90.3 WHPC. And, of course, you can also download or listen in your favorite podcast venue, like iHeart, Odyssey, Apple, etc., etc. There's a whole bunch of them. I don't know about Google Play. I think they're kind of stopping Google Play. Did I hear that rumor? Not sure. Anyway, I want to tell you that Herbally Yours consistently brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living, and including lots of discussion about herbalism. That's why we call this show Herbally Yours. And today I am so happy to have as our guest Ivonne Corrales, and she is a nurse who is moving more and more into having a practice, a natural practice, based on herbs and natural therapies. Ivonne shared her personal story because she has been part of a program I teach called the Natural Nurse Herbal Certification Course. And if any of you are interested in that, you can find that at naturalnurse.com. So Ivonne and I met through her participating in that class. And so she shared some information with us, such as the fact, and I'll let her tell her story as well, that she herself dealt with chronic pain and found her way to natural medicine. And then while she was involved with working with me, I had an incident, hurt my knee, and she sent me an absolutely fantastic homemade herbal remedy that includes herbs that we'll talk about, such as arnica, that has really, really been helpful. So after I got that and tried it for a while, I said, Ivonne, perhaps you'd like to come on our radio show right here, Herbally Yours, to share with other nurses who might be interested, and of course anyone who's interested in moving their life to where their focus is on natural medicine. And that's what I have done my entire life. So thank you so much for being our guest today, Ivonne.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel so grateful and honored to be here sharing space with you. And you were one of the first nurses I came across that just completely changed my life, because I had been searching for a pathway. And as that saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher presents itself. And that's very much how I feel about you. So I'm so grateful, and thank you so, so much.
Well, let's go back in time, Ivonne, to Ivonne, little girl. What made you decide to become a nurse in the first place?
I always had a passion for helping people and also animals. And I was always kind of torn between which pathway I would end up taking to help animals or people. And I help both now, but I pursued the path of nursing because my aunt was diagnosed with cancer when I was 15. And that was at the time when I was really deciding on what to pursue in university and college, and her cancer was lymphatic cancer, and it quickly spread to her whole body, and she was in constant pain. And seeing her suffering to that degree, I vowed to make a promise to myself to find herbs that would help people with chronic illness that really didn't find relief with anything else. So my aunt Adelfa Cuevas was the inspiration for me to finally go down the path of nursing.
So let me ask you this. That sounds like you, like me. I was interested in herbs since 1964. I was an herbalist in Bisbee, Arizona, and I was also a midwife, and I delivered about over 200 babies at home. And then I took care of my own babies, who were babies then, they're going to be 50 now, with all herbal medicine. So I was an herbalist first. And I also already had a degree as a science teacher. And then I went to the local college in Arizona because they had a job, and I took a job there teaching math to nurses. That's how I got into nursing, because then the nursing program said, if you're a teacher here, you can take any course here at Cochise College in Arizona for free. So I said, wow, that's a good idea. So I actually became a nurse, through the back door. I was an herbalist first, a midwife, natural medicine, and then got into nursing. So one thing that was very difficult for me, and I wonder if it was for you, is going through the nursing program, which is so pharmaceutically based.
I totally can completely agree with you. It was after pursuing the nursing career that I realized how disconnected I truly felt because of the amount of pharmaceuticals that were pushed into the system when the patient was failed to be seen as a holistic entity, and they were only being seen as a machine where the parts were being replaced. And I always felt a huge disconnection because I could see my patients psychologically, they were needing more help than just what the medicine provided for them was. And I always craved more for them.
Well, I think that's beautiful that you hung in there, because many nurses who, I'm tutoring on various levels, they really want to do natural medicine like you're focusing on, and they don't even want to finish nursing school. They go, no, I'm going to drop out. I can't do this. I can't wake people up at night to give them a sleeping pill because that's listed as one of their meds, but they're sound asleep. So it doesn't make sense. So they would sometimes want to quit. But I always emphasize, guess what? Don't quit. Stay in there and become a nurse, because nursing itself is a fabulous profession. And there's the American Holistic Nurses Association, which I don't know if you belong to yet, but you should. And that's where they're really looking at that integrative component of all the wonderful caring things we are taught as nurses. And then you can also integrate, like you're now doing, natural medicine along with that.
Thank you so much. I also am a member of the American Holistic Nurses Association. Thanks to your guidance, I hope on attending a conference soon. And one of the things that I would advise nurses that are also struggling with this internal dilemma where they feel so ethically conflicted on following the orders that a doctor that doesn't really even know the patient offers, I would say you need to be a light in this field as well, because if all of us leave, then what will be left for the patient?
That's a good point. Well, what I would do in terms of being an activist in that situation I just described, and any nurse can do this, is I would make a point of looking up who's the ordering doctor, and I would ask them, could you please just make a little change on that sleeping med to make it PRN? So PRN is this cool and groovy term that all us nurses know, which just mean, and doctors as well, of course, as needed. And that gives the nurse the flexibility to make a decision whether people need another sleeping pill or another pain med, because then it's put into their hands to make that decision. But the doctor just didn't put it in there, so then you can't make that decision at 2 a.m. when you're in the hospital there. So things like that can actually help as well.
I think that's a great point, and I completely agree with you.
So you are so involved with natural therapies, and herbs in particular. What brought you there?
As I said, my aunt was the first real driving factor to finding a plant that would holistically heal more ailments than I ever thought possible. And I found that through a book called CBD, Healing Without the High, A Patient's Guide to Medicinal Cannabis by Leonard Lanau. And they operate a wellness clinic in California that he actually receives a lot of patients that are referred by doctors that know that he'll be able to help them better than they can. And his book really started that eye-opening journey of, oh my goodness, there's a plant that can help each person holistically and individually on levels that we're still studying now. The endocannabinoid system is truly remarkable, and the CB1 and CB2 receptors that are found in our body through the adaptive process of evolutionary plant growth is completely mind-blowing, and it's something I'm still continuing to study till this day. And then I was searching for nurses that were on this path, and that's when I found you. And as soon as I found you, I actually started crying. And I was like, this is the person that is literally the advocate for everything that I also want to be and do.
Right. And of course, we have a wonderful organization that I'm an active part of. I'm on the education committee, which is the American Cannabis Nurses Association. That's a really great group, too. And what you're talking about is so exciting. What you just shared, let's talk about that more, because you've been studying it in terms of what we're calling the endocannabinoid system, which is so amazing because our bodies make the receptor sites for those molecules. They were put there by whoever you believe, you know, God, nature, whatever, but they're actually there.
Yes. And I've really been blown away by this book. They reference over 417 medical peer-reviewed articles. It's a really dense, beautiful information that really has helped me a lot in dealing with my father's Parkinson's and using the guidance that the book suggests, and also knowing my father and talking to him and his symptoms. And it's a really beautiful bridge on bringing the plant that you said, whoever you believe to God to be the creator, and our knowledge, and putting those things together. It just goes to show us how we are an extension of the creation.
Well, talk a little bit about, you know, what you have been able to do to help your dad with Parkinson's.
I do a lot of work with CBD for him because he's grown up in Colombia, and unfortunately it was stigmatized as a drug there. And finally, after he really opened his eyes to how much the plant CBD is able to help him with his tremors, with his insomnia due to the levodopa, the dopamine keeping him up at night, and it's part of his medicine schedule, so he can't go without, but he always uses CBD to help combat the side effects that the quote-unquote medicine, which is pharmaceuticals, are causing in his body. And as a nurse and as a holistic nurse and a Reiki practitioner, I've been utilizing both herbal medicine, specifically, like I said, CBD, a lot of neurotropic plants. I'm using a lot of adaptogenic mushrooms, including chaga, reishi, turkey tail. Also doing a mix of an infused cocoa butter for him that helps protect the myelin sheath, and turmeric, which also acts as an anti-plaque formation in the brain. So I'm utilizing all those herbs spaced out appropriately, given that CBD also attaches to the same site at the liver that is the primary metabolism site for medicine as well.
See, and anyone can tell just by listening today, so let's reintroduce you as well and tell our listeners you are listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Listen live online at nccradio.org or on any podcast venue of your choice. You can always email us at whpc@ncc.edu. And today we are having as our guest nurse and naturalist Ivonne Corrales, and she is talking to us about how she has taken a deep dive into really understanding the spiritual aspects, the healing aspects, as well as the biophysiological aspects, which are totally proven. There's no just, only meditating and getting this information. Yes, there's that as well as grounded science about using herbal medicine. And she shared with us, and thank you so much, Ivonne, Nurse Corrales, that you're using particular herbs called nootropic. Let's define that term for our listeners.
To be completely honest, I think you would do a way better job defining.
Well, you're talking about some of them. Like, for instance, you're talking about reishi, chaga. Why would you choose something like reishi and chaga?
I did a lot of research, and using the guidance of the language, the doctrine of signatures, that replicates, the plant replicates what part of the human body it helps. For example, a walnut is said to be really good for brain health because it mimics the brain. And if you open up the little walnut shell, it really does look like you just took a little piece of the skull off to do a cranie. And using the doctrine of signatures, being a nurse, as I mentioned, and as you mentioned, I worked in the operating room and I love neurosurgery. So I did a lot of neurosurgery. And the first time I ever saw a brain, and then the first time I ever saw the mycelium network in a side-by-side comparison, my mind was blown. There's no denying that we are a part of this earth, just like the mycelium network connects everything beneath us. And because of the doctrine of signatures, I was very curious to pursue more research with reishi, chaga, and also psilocybin mushrooms that have been approved in California. They're using them a lot for PTSD and soldiers that are really struggling with that. When I lived in California, I helped my dad with that, and I've been pursuing and continuing to use the chaga and reishi because of how much it helps his memory and the retention and the battling of, like I said, all of the side effects that his medicine causes him. I can see a difference in his movement, in his gait, in his facial expressions when he regularly consumes reishi, turkey tail, and chaga, and also lion's mane is specifically researched for the effects on brain health, and it also even has been researched in stopping tumor growth in the brain specifically.
Yeah, and anyone can find that out. This is not secretnurse.com knowledge. All you have to do is anybody can go. It's completely free. It's called PubMed, PubMed. You don't just go to PubMed.org. You actually just Google PubMed, and it will take you to this site, which is a site where all studies are posted. And you can then put in any of the herbs that Ivonne just mentioned, such as lion's mane or chaga or reishi. And you can then get more specific if you are listening, because she said it was about Parkinson's. But just in general, you will see all the science that has been done. As a matter of fact, Ivonne, I was involved with an NIH presentation, which is called Whole Health. And the whole NIH right now, National Institute of Health, is focusing on what they're calling whole health and whole person medicine. And guess what? They say at the NIH that botanical interventions, food, and lifestyle is actually now considered the evidence-based path towards all these diseases, and especially in terms of staying well for longer in the first place, and that the recommendation should be that everyone use that first. Every doctor should be having that as standard of practice protocol before moving into the pharmaceuticals, which can be useful and can be integrated in later. but often will never be needed. But that is actually the state of the science now.
That makes me really, really happy to hear that, because I'm so happy that they're actually admitting the effectiveness of some herbs. And like you said, yes, pharmaceuticals are also necessary in certain situations, but patients being able to choose something that grows naturally from the ground versus something that's man-made chemically is something that is our freedom. It's part of our freedom.
Well, then we get into the political aspects, of course, because were more doctors trained to have the kind of knowledge that you're self-training yourself as well as taking classes in. Like I said, anyone could look up lion's mane online, but not at a site that sells it, but under the PubMed where the research is, like what you're sharing with us so eloquently, Ivonne, that they would see, well, how come my doctor doesn't know this? And if you go and ask your doctor, they don't know it because they're not trained it. But it's actually a political discussion at that point. Because if we're saying the NIH is recognizing the jig is up, the evidence is there, and natural remedies should take precedence because they cost less, they're more effective, and much, much, much safer with a very small adverse effect profile versus a pharmaceutical drug for the same issue. So why aren't we doing that? That's where the politics comes in, and that's where the money comes in, because somebody would lose. And it's not that the doctors would lose, not that the nurses would lose, certainly not that the patients would lose. They would win, but the pharmaceutical companies would lose. So that's, a big topic on what blocks this information from getting forward.
I completely agree with that. And as I was searching for knowledge, your course was really such a beautiful, in-depth analysis of so many herbs and so many beautiful plants. And I would recommend anyone seeking more information to go through accredited sources like you mentioned, PubMed, and I highly recommend your Natural Nurse Herbal Certification course because they have direct access to speaking with you, and through the projects and the creation project at the end, they'll really learn and you'll be able to answer most of the questions. You're the most educated person with herbal medicine that I have ever come across.
Well, thank you so much. But we didn't set up the show for you to tout about me, but I do appreciate it. But I certainly want to go into something you made me, which has been personally so helpful, and that is your arnica oil, which I used on my knee injury. So let's talk about why you put that formula together.
I would love to share with you. My mom has rheumatoid arthritis, and she's constantly battled the pain of her everyday daily activities. And I was tired of seeing her in pain. And after being recommended several medicines that the doctor explicitly told her, this will destroy your liver and it will elevate your liver enzymes, my mother came to me and said, I know that you love plant medicine. What do you recommend for me? Besides turmeric that she now takes daily to help her inflammation, I created an oil for both her and my dad to help with his sciatica, including a base of organic olive oil. And I was inspired by the ancient Egyptians to use that as a base. Arnica, which provides the analgesic comfort. It's really good for pain relief, and it's also good for bruising to move the stagnant blood. Cayenne to increase circulation, to tell the little cells and all the immune boosting cells, hey, you're needed in this area, please come over here. CBD, because CBD will forever be my number one love. It's an analgesic, immunoregulator, anti-inflammatory. The list goes on and on if you pick up that CBD book, A Patient's Guide to Medicinal Cannabis. Lavender essential oil because of the calming effects and the antimicrobial properties. Passion flower in this formula acts as the central nervous system stimulant, and I learned that from your course. And lastly, a peppermint essential oil. I wanted to create a natural icy hot, but something that was completely organic. Every item that I used for this was organic. I did not want any chemicals or artificial additives to this. Following the procedure that Rosemary Gladstar recommended for herbal infusions with an oil base, I also infused with Reiki, and that was the final product.
Well, it looks beautiful, it smells beautiful, and it's so effective. I mean, I look forward to putting it on my knee. I usually do it at night, and it really made a major difference. Now, Ivonne, with all your wonderful knowledge, and I think you're just, coming into like a powerful part of your life where you're going to feel confident about sharing this with many people as well as integrated into your personal life like you have. Is there a way people could get in touch with you to learn more?
Yes, totally. I always offer my Instagram page, which is at IVIE_holistic, HOLISTIC. You can reach me there and DM me with any questions, any concerns, any curiosities about both herbal medicine and Reiki, and any guidance on maybe if there's another nurse that's also in the path of, hey, I really want to pursue this, but my family's not really for it, or my friends are not for it, but I feel like this is what I should do. I would say follow your intuition and go for the plant medicine. If it's calling you, that means you're ready to hear their call.
That's excellent. So it's IVIE_holistic.
Correct. Yes. Perfect. Thank you so much.
So what we're going to do is when people listen to this show, if they want to listen to it again or tell their friend to listen to it, we will have this posted so they can very easily find it on Instagram. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you.
And me, you. So I want to also thank you listeners for tuning in again to Herbally Yours, which is produced in the studios of 90.3 WHPC, Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, you can email us here at whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamhi, at naturalnurse.com. You can always get in touch with me there, and we send you back a private message back. And we're inviting you to join us next week, as always, for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, we hope that you and your family stay healthy.